like she's gotten into all this violent world because of how much of a thrill she's looking for. So the more vague it is, the better it is for her. And then like things like, oh, another intruder, and then immediately trying to get killed. Like for her, that's just gonna be like, what do you mean another one? Ooh, I'm excited.
Welcome to Casuals of Runeterra, episode 128. I'm your host, Ryan, here with the other host, Edge.
What is up, everybody? And we're still talking about, our Cyclops mommy, please step on me.
Oh my gosh, I forgot. I'm looking at the picture of her and forgot about Hedge. I'm sorry, folks, but...
Wait, you're the one looking at a picture of her. I am like, I'm invested in this episode. I'm not distracted.
You can't lie to an officer like that. It's illegal.
I'm just oozing alpha male energy.
Housekeeping up top as usual. You can listen to us everywhere. Visit us at podcastcore.com for all of our info. Remember, that's COR. And email us at podcastcore@gmail.com if you want to get in contact. And then follow us on all the platforms because that helps us get discovered. And leave a like and a comment because we want to hear from you. But word of mouth has gotten us this far. And it's still working. So tell a friend to give into the compulsions by listening to the Casuals of Runeterra podcast.
Oh my ass. But yeah, as far as like giving into the compulsions, we're talking about possibly the most impulsive person in the Runeterra universe, which is Samira. Still going into her story, and Samira is 100% letting a person that lets the intrusive thoughts win.
Evelyn has more restraint than Samira.
Okay, now that's a little far. Yeah. It's like the meme from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's out of line, but he's right.
So yeah, today we're talking about her story. We talked about her bio, obviously. The rule of thumb is this is your first episode. Go back and listen to that one. So it gives you a basis for this. This is Daredevil Impulse. And what this does is it essentially gives us an adventure, right? An adventure with Samira. And the story is conveniently, we like to break, stories into three parts, the way they're best told. But this story does it for us. So we start with this situation in a weapon shop, which makes sense.
If it doesn't make sense to you, that probably means that you haven't actually listened to this, like our bio episode.
Yeah.
So like legitimately go listen to it, and then you'll be like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So Samira enters a weapon shop with Indari, who is her captain, who's now been injured, so she's in a wheelchair, but she's still kind of her point man, her intel, right?
Yeah. She is the oracle to Batman.
Yes, actually, perfect. And
even in the wheelchair.
Yeah. And she walks in, there's this weapon maker in there, there's some apprentices, and the weapon maker also doubles as a tattoo artist, which, listen, master of multiple trades, right? Got to. In this economy, you have to.
Hey, like if you haven't joined the military to make your extra money for the Dodge Charger, then yeah, you've got to have you got to have two jobs.
You don't get a Hellcat with one job, all right? That's not how it works. So Samira's in a weapon shop. She wants to buy guns, right? And she wants to buy something new because she's bored with hers. That's pretty much the reason she gives. And she likes to spend money, and she likes to piss off her captain. So this kind of solves all those problems in one swoop, right? The one thing, though, that's important here is that she likes to spend money. Now, keep this in mind for the next champion we'll talk about in our future episode. But she goes in and she sees what's labeled as an expensive, untested Zonite weapon. Now, surprise, she buys it.
Again, if you let the impulsive thoughts always win, you get Samira.
And Dari's like, what the fuck? This is a terrible idea. And Samira's like, I need it. I need the right equipment for this job. So what is this job? Well, we'll find out in a bit.
Yeah, and as far as like with at this setup here, like one of the nice things that we do get to see is that uh we really in the bio we didn't get a great idea of what Samira's day-to-day looks like after the botch job that ended up being Indari's
Yeah.
last mission, right? So this is giving us more of an insight of what the day-to-day looks like, which is Samira, meeting up with Indari and at relatively sketchy areas, right? Because this is this is a gun shop that doubles as a tattoo parlor. That doesn't actually sound like the healthiest tattoo parlor. But like they meet up somewhere, get some tools for the job, and go do the job. So this is what her day to day looks like now, or at least like some more details. So it's nice to get those details, but otherwise, we're just here to see some Samira Sakuga, right? Like,
Yeah, and
please
it's
tell me
funny.
there's Sakuga.
It's funny because tattoo shops usually double as piercing shops. So, but this is Noxus. So this actually is a pretty fun take.
Hey, I mean, if you think about it, it's a way to give piercings to your enemies, right? It's like, instead of
Not
piercing an
wrong.
earlobe, we're piercing it right between your eyes.
So we go to part two. And in part two, we jump to the quote unquote job. And Samira is now in the southern jungles weeks later with a little action taking place in between. Like there's really nothing going on besides her just traveling and looking for this thing. And this, reading the way she says this as she's getting to her mission or trying to figure out what her actual mission is, because it's kind of vague. We come to the conclusion that she has ADHD, but for violence. There's a thing where like that's her vice is violence. Like that keeps her going, that keeps her thrills going. The gun is just the equipment for that violence. And this mission was pretty simple. It's to enter a compound that's near Qualthala, which is quite the name.
You got
She needs
there.
she needs to retrieve a weapon that threatens the empire, once again, vague, and then leave no survivors. And we don't know who these people are. So you remember we talked about it? Well, if you didn't listen to our last episode, you don't remember. But in our last episode, we talked about at the end, she becomes that person who goes on these solo missions that no one else can do. And it's probably because the instructions are very unclear why no one can do it. And we find out that when she gets there, someone shouts, "Another intruder," quote, another. And then she rushes in for some target practice. So
And
it's a weird
like,
situation to start off.
yeah. And on the note of like, she goes on missions that nobody else can do. I think it's more that like she goes on missions that nobody else wants to do, right? Because
True.
it's a combination of ADHD for violence as well as just thrill seeking. And like if you think of it as a rational human being and the job details are that vague,
Yeah.
you're going to start asking questions and likely you're not going to get answers. And then you'll probably say, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Samira is not going to say no because it's like, oh, like the more vague it is, the more adventurous it is to find out how screwed I could be, because like I'm here for seeking a thrill, and that's it. Like she's gotten into all this violent world because of how much of a thrill she's looking for. So the more vague it is, the better it is for her. And then like things like, oh, another intruder, and then immediately trying to get killed. Like for her, that's just gonna be like, what do you mean another one? Ooh, I'm excited.
Yeah. It's crazy because she's also skilled. So she hears what's said and she processes it, but the other part of her brain's like, fuck it, let's go. Like I heard what they said, but who cares? Hedge did a bit of foreshadowing too, by the way. So keep what he said in mind. Sakuga, not the Sakuga part, something different. But Sakuga's happening now.
I just wanted Sakuga. Like, you know what? Forget about the foreshadowing because it's Sakuga time. Samira wouldn't be thinking about foreshadowing.
Yeah, so it's Sakuga time. She kind of discovers that someone has beat her to the weapon location, which is rare. And then another guard asks, as this mess is going on, did Rel send you to clean up this mess? Once again, she's like, no. Who's Rel, right? For one, we know who she is. We'll talk about her at some point. But she says, no, I'm here with Noxus, which I don't know if you should also tell them that. Listen,
Hey,
Samira is
look,
a amalgamation of concerns.
look, it's not about whether or not like it's a good idea to tell them that. Again, like Samira is just on like a bloody warpath essentially because for her
Yeah,
it's fun. Like she's just trying to find that entertainment. So it doesn't matter what she says to these guys. She's not letting them walk away. She can say whatever she wants.
true.
Who are they
Yeah,
going to tell?
you're right. You're right. I forgot about, God damn. See,
Yeah.
that's me as a amateur mercenary. I don't have.
Yeah, you would be one of the mercenaries that would look at the job details and go, "I'm not doing that job." That's why Samir is here now.
Send him to desk duty. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
but yeah, like as far as to that point, she does kind of reveal some information to these to these basilisk riders, but
mhm.
then the first she says that first thing, one of them catches a bullet to the head,
Oh
and
yeah,
then
it's brutal. That's
yeah,
that's one thing about Samira, right? Like it's even in her bio when it talks about how she kills people, it's very final. Like it's not. There's no
yeah.
playing with your food type business with her.
And I'm glad that you use like brutal because like I think it's like has a bit of the brutality that we're missing that from some of the stories for like Draven and
Yeah,
some of these other Noxus characters that are just as bloody as
yeah,
Samira, but they were older bios, a younger Riot Games
true.
targeting a younger audience, but now their audience has grown up, so these stories have clearly grown up too. So
That's a
if
good point.
this is a good read as far as seeing like the growth that Riot's gone under as far as the storytelling, because uh, this is a lot more brutal than we would have gotten like 5 years ago in a story, which you could go read some of those stories, but we covered them in our show too, so pick your poison.
Exactly. And Hetch mentioned the Basilisk Riders, so we get to the point at the end of the saga. You can go read it because there's a lot of her bantering Samira stuff, right? And they kind of set the scene very well on how they move through this space. But she finishes the remaining one in a fancy manner, as she always does. And then she continues through the compound to do her. This is the Batman portion, right? This is the detective portion. And
Yep.
she continues through the compound to find the building doors are smashed. There's a stone prison cell that's warped, and there's metal scattered everywhere. And then there's another front door that's smashed. And there's this giant gaping hole that tunnels out into the jungle. Uh, and to her, she's like, this is probably nothing to worry about. Right? That's it. So she pulls out her flask, sits down, drinks, and is just happy that there's more to this whole mission. She's happy that it didn't turn out to be as boring as she thought it was. Because remember, for weeks, she's been doing nothing but traversing a jungle, right? That's not her bag.
and like she even like her last words as far as like on the mission front, the last words that she says is congratulations weapon, whatever or whoever you are, you've got my attention. And which I mean, like we've already kind of established that it's almost like ADHD, so the
Mhm.
fact that she now has her attention focused on something, oh yeah, like there's like going to be more to this story at some point, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's who's gonna look at all of that destruction and a literal tunnel, like a large tunnel too, that looks like it was freshly dug
Yeah.
but completed, and then just like, this is whatever. I'm just gonna sit down and drink. Like, who does that? Samira, please.
Oh man, I will tell you at some point. But our what we do here is we set you up, and then months later something pops up again. So sit tight.
Stay tuned for the Ruination book.
Yeah, well, we hop into our last part here, which is a couple weeks later because she's heading back. Right, we're back in the weapon shop where Samira is now getting a tattoo or getting tattoos kind of updated and cleaned
Yep.
up. No new ink. But Indari asks her, about her new toy. She's like, "Did you like the guns?" And she's surprised when Samira not only says she enjoyed them, but plans on using them for multiple times. Like she's one to use a gun and get rid of it because she's bored, right? But she's sticking with this set. And then after she gets her tattoo, a little bit of chit chat, she pays up, leaves, and then tells Indari, let me know when the next mission is. And Dari's like, "Hey, I don't know how to contact you. You don't have a cell phone."
Yeah, like we're in a magic world. You don't, so like we don't have cell phones or anything like that. And the last time I had to track you down, I nearly lost some of my scouts.
You know what this reminds me of Demon Slayer, because this actually happens in Demon Slayer,
Yes.
where if they're on a mission, on their way to mission, and something changes, it's so perilous that trying to go update them or get other like messengers to get to them can result in the death of messengers.
Yep. It's very much like that, and then like and Dari's like, "Yo, I've already lost some messengers. I don't want to lose more." And Samira's like, you'll find me." And it's just leaves
Gone.
anyways, just like deuces.
It's that meme of the guy throwing up a peace sign and then disappearing.
Yes,
You know, you know. And then we get a little bit of to be continued here, where once she's gone, Indari notices that the tattoo artist is a different person. They dropped this shadowy guise. They had this dark sorcery they were concealing their appearance with, and it's a pale-faced woman. And they say, "Captain Indari, you will give her whatever she wants. The Empire needs Samira." Good
Hmm.
old Black Rose.
Huh. I mean, are you sure? Like it could be. Yeah, like it can't. You can't just jump to Black Rose because it is a pale skinned woman with the power of magic and like deceitful disguises who has a invested interest in the Noxian Empire. It could be anyone.
You're right. It's Vladimir. My bad. I fucked up.
Yeah, it's Vlad. But no, like this is clearly, like Black Rose involvement, and more
Oh
likely than
man.
not is going to be LeBlanc, right? But
Yeah.
that
So
like
yeah.
it makes sense though, because like to the comment that like there's no cell phones, there's also like no internet.
Yeah.
So how is Indari getting access to like these leads for jobs
Mhm.
of a perilous nature without having a really big network to tap into? She clearly has a network to tap into, and who has a better network connection than the Black Rose?
Yeah.
Like, and that's not just in Noxus, like the Black Rose is everywhere.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that that would be her contact, but we don't get any more details other than that. We just get the reveal that the Black Rose is involved and they have an invested interest in Samira.
Yeah,
And
and
that's where we end.
yeah, and that's where our story ends. But this is the part of the show. If you want to stick around, we do a little bit of interesting discussion. And the one thing I want to bring up here is the Indari Samira relationship. Because if you remember from our bio, um, we mentioned that Indari has experience and she saw the recklessness and saw the potential in Samira. And we ultimately would think from that, oh, it's a person with talent, but they can be a danger to themselves. So I'm going to be the leash, right? And now that we see the direct involvement with the Black Rose, it could be more than that, because Indari does see a lot of herself in Samira. And it could be a case where when she comments on Samira's ridiculousness, where Samira, because of her personality, sees it as, oh, mom's just breathing down my neck, where it ultimately is Indari protecting her from this amazing influence that Indari is very familiar with. And the leash is more a case of, hey, I need to make sure she doesn't go too far, or that she doesn't become directly connected to the Black Rose, because she may not be able to handle that. Because remember the biggest part, she's still very young. Samira is young. She got started early because of her circumstances. So I think that's the depth there that you can play with as a consumer of the content.
Yeah, and it definitely makes sense as far as like trying to be more protective, because like sure, Samara, as you said, is like, oh well, mom's breathing down my neck,
Mhm.
and Indari is probably is kind of taking on more of a caretaker role,
Yeah.
because not only is Samira young, but we know that her parents were injured
Yeah.
in their escape to Noxus. So like more likely than not, her parents weren't in any kind of position to be the reins to
Yeah.
to Samira's adrenaline junkies, like adrenaline rush seeking. So, somebody had to step up to the plate, and more likely than not, like we don't have a lot of details as far as like missions when Indari was still active. Like
Yeah.
so far we don't have a story of when Indari was active as a saboteur, and but more like seeing Samira and what we know of Samira, there is no way in hell that there weren't at least 80% of their missions with Indari going, Samira, no, get back here.
Yeah.
Come back here. You're gonna get blown up. Calm the hell down and let's get the job done. But now, she just physically doesn't have the means to do that. So she does it the best way she can, which is to be the liaison to this higher power and keep Samira at a distance. But at the very least, we know that like at the moment, the Black Rose doesn't want to have direct contact with Samira.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if the Black Rose wants to have direct contact,
Yeah.
they're going to have direct contact. It's not like I don't think Indari can protect Samira as much as she probably wants to. But
For you Venture Bro fans, the Black Rose is the investors.
Oh, yeah.
If they want to get in contact, they will.
Yeah, like they're 100% the investors, and I think like this God, what was like with the Venture Brothers reference, like because Samira is Brock, and then like Indari is his trainer, the one that's trans. I forget
Oh yeah,
her
that
name.
could work.
Yeah, probably
no,
like that
works.
because
Yeah,
but like Venture Brothers is completely different because
that's actually really
she
a
does,
great comparison. Yeah,
yeah, she does come back like as an active agent again
Yeah.
in their own organization, but that's how the investors get involved because, yeah, if the Black Rose wants you, the Black Rose will find you, and they already found Samira.
Yeah.
They just are choosing not to make direct contact yet. So we're gonna have to wait to see if Riot's gonna give us more details, like because we can speculate about it all day. That's the fun part when you get into like this more espionage,
yeah,
mercenary style instead of just straight up Sakuga. But like it's so open-ended at the moment that we could go on for hours. We're just gonna have to wait until Riot decides to give us more.
and
Which-
right. If you want to put Indari in the game with a bunch of dope wheelchair skins as a support character, do it. Do it.
I mean, think like if they took a page like out of some other MOBAs, and then like the Indari could be more like a kind of play like Abathur in Heart of the Storm,
Yeah,
where like a stationary unit that
Yeah.
just has like a far-reaching ways of like helping other people. That would be kind
it
of
would
cool.
be a neat way to shake things up, and you get some representation. Because the one thing you got to remember as well, resources are unlimited here for Indari and Samira, right? So Indari can get back in the field in certain ways
Yeah.
that most other and they're the only one of their kind in this order. So
I
yeah,
mean,
that'd
this
be
is
a cool aspect, I think.
I think like if Indari got into the game, like because that would be like a cool way to do it. But I think like the Riot approach, that like because we've been seeing like the stories kind of getting more mature and darker, right? So I think like if Indari made a comeback, it would be because Indari, like feels pressured to help Samira out in the field.
Yeah.
So then she's gonna turn to someone who might be able to give her
Hedge.
means of mobility
no.
again. And we're in
Fucking
Noxus.
tilt over.
We're in Noxus, so there's a lot of avenues of trying to get your legs back, right?
Yeah, and we
whether
do
through
know-
blood magic,
Yeah.
whether through the Black Rose's connections, or maybe she did work in the military, so she probably knows about like some mad scientist by the name of Singed. There's a lot of interesting ways that you can bring Indari back.
You're not
into
wrong, and that makes me mad. But with
It
that,
also makes you worried about Indari.
all right, so that brings us into our episode. As always, we appreciate y'all being here. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with the next episode.
Yeah, and Ryan did kind of point out that like to look out for it, and if you could guess it, that'd be cool. Hit us up at podcastscore@gmail.com. See if you can guess, and otherwise, take Take care, everybody.